Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I would like to talk a little bit about the two big stories of the week, that is the Downing Street fines and Rwanda. But before I start, I've got a little bit of problem, and I need a bit of help if you wouldn't mind. I've been making these videos for about a year now. I think I made about 50 of them. Now I've got a wife, and she's not the problem. She's very nice, but she's never seen one of my videos. But she does watch a lot of other people's videos, and she's always asking me how many subscribers I've got, and I say, well, I've got 25,000 or so, and she says, oh well, you must be doing something wrong. She said, I watch people who've got millions, so I need a few more subscribers, and so if you haven't subscribed, I really would be grateful, and if you approve of what I'm saying, you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, I would appreciate that too. I have also finally, after a year, I've got this, so I will try to remember to include it in future videos, and hope to get some more subscribers. Anyway, yes, the Downing Street fines. Well, as we know, Johnson and Sunak and Johnson's wife all got a fine. They all rushed onto television or rushed out statements saying that they'd paid the fines, as though that was any penalty for some people who are so rich, or as rich as they are. Then Johnson gave his little interview from Chequers, where he explained that on this occasion what had happened is he got up at 7 o'clock in the morning. He was working from 7 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that in itself is something really, really remarkable, isn't it? The fact that somebody should actually start work at 7 o'clock in the morning, a Prime Minister. Anyway, he started work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and sometime late in the afternoon he wandered into the cabinet room, and lo and behold, there was his wife and a whole load of people. They all got drinks and food and stuff, and they had a birthday cake, and Sunak was there. He came in as well, and they all sang happy birthday. And as Johnson said, I mean, it's a perfectly easy mistake to make. He didn't realise that, well, he didn't realise he did anything wrong. The fact that previous weeks on television he was telling us all that we mustn't meet more than 2 people, or we mustn't do this and we mustn't do that, and let's all stay home under lockdown, that he kind of slipped his memory, which I suppose is one of those things that could happen. You just forget that you're telling the nation to stay home and not meet anybody else and then have a party. So they all got fined, and he gave this pathetic interview from Chequers, where he looked very sorry for himself, and he said he was terribly sorry, but when he was asked to resign, he said no, he wanted to get on with what the people wanted him to do, the British people wanted him to do, which is to carry on screwing everything up, I presume. Now Sunak, after the fines were announced, Sunak kept very quiet for about 3 or 4 hours, and everybody thought, was he going to resign? Was he at last going to show some sort of decency and integrity and some sort of honour and resign and say, look, I did something wrong, and it's not possible for me to reign as Chancellor Rishi, having broken the law whilst in 11 Downing Street. But no, sooner or later he caved in, and I suppose the thought of carrying on with his red box and his prestige of being Chancellor was too much to give up as a matter of honour, so he decided to stay. And I think what I found really almost disgusting, I mean, I found it so degrading, so demeaning, I think is the best word. All these ministers, one after the other, came out tweeting all over the place, and lots of MPs tweeting about the Prime Minister. He made a mistake, he's owned up for it, he's paid the fine. He's sacrificed £50, he's paid the fine, and then we should move on. And some were saying that during the course of the war, we can't change our leader during the course of a war, and so all these pathetic people said, yes, no, it's fine, he's got away with it. Of course they were instructed by the propaganda unit in Downing Street, you know, the Joseph Goebbels room, who put out these statements and all these cliches from time to time. The current one is that he's leading the world in the fight against Putin in Ukraine. He, knowing the fines were coming up a couple of weeks ago, he thought he'd better get a photo opportunity, and so he went off to Ukraine and spent a couple of hours there having his photograph taken a lot with Zelensky. And being a cynic, I would suspect that one of his officials probably said to Zelensky's people before this meeting took place, they probably said something like, look, our Prime Minister's pretty vain. He wants to be seen as a winner on the world stage. He's desperate to be a world leader. So if you say something nice about him, he's more likely to give you some more money and some more guns. And so, quite rightly, we've sent a lot of money and a lot of guns, and in return, it seems Zelensky got up and said what a wonderful leader and how much Britain was doing under Boris Johnson to help the battle against Russia. And so it would seem, and the propaganda department to keep putting this out, that Boris Johnson is leading the world in the fight against the Russians. And so I presume what happens now is that if Biden is thinking, Joe Biden is thinking, shall we send another a few $100 million to Ukraine? Shall we send some more weapons and so on? I presume he must phone up his leader, Boris Johnson, and ask what he thinks about it before he does so. And I presume the EU, incidentally, Ursula von der Leyen was in Kyiv a couple of days before Johnson anyway. But I presume they all say in the EU, well, before we do anything more, we better phone our leader, the clown in Downing Street, and see what he thinks about it. So the whole idea that he's leading the world, what world is following Boris Johnson? It's just pathetic nonsense. But people believe it because it's in the papers. It's in the papers that we are the fastest growing country in the G7, that we got the fastest booster rollout, and that's how we've done so well against COVID, much better than any other country because we are faster with the rollout. Look at the figures. Look at the people who are dying every day under this incompetent clown's mismanagement of the economy. And it's never a bad thing, I think, to remember, or to remind ourselves once in a while, as to just what his record is. This goon, this man who spends, I mean, last week he made this announcement about Rwanda. Now, ordinarily in the past, if there's an important announcement to be made, it's always made in Parliament. But with this guy, he goes off, as he does 3 days a week, off visiting a hotel, a hospital, or a factory. Or last week, in order to announce this Rwanda business, he went to some air base or something, I don't know, was it 3 hours away from London, in order to make a speech about immigration. And when you look at his record, you look right back from the start, where he prorogued Parliament, and that involved lying to the Queen and so on. I mean, that involved going to the Supreme Court and so on, and being found guilty of proroguing Parliament when he had no right to. There was the business with Dominic Cummings when he went off up north to Barnard Castle, testing his eyesight, and he came back, and instead of being sacked instantly as he should have been, he was given a big press conference in the garden at Downing Street, and everybody had to wait an hour for him for his royal arrival to come and explain that he'd been testing his eyesight when he went to Barnard Castle. There's our threat to break international law. We signed an agreement with the EU over Northern Ireland, involving the Northern Ireland Protocol and so on. And within weeks, Johnson, who'd signed this agreement, was putting it about that we had every intention of breaking it if it wasn't amended to our satisfaction. I mean, that's still going on, and that's another problem that's going to crop up in due course. There's a business with Patel, when she broke the ministerial code by being found guilty of, following an inquiry, a proper inquiry, she was found guilty of bullying. This is the third department in which she'd been accused of bullying. And Johnson's response was, when she was found guilty, I have complete 100% confidence in the Home Secretary, and she'll remain in his place, which she is. Incidentally, on the subject of Patel, there is something between her and Johnson, definitely. When he was Foreign Secretary, she went off to Israel, and don't forget, Theresa May was the Prime Minister. Theresa May knew nothing about this. Johnson was Foreign Secretary. Patel was a junior minister under Johnson. She went off to Israel, had meetings with all sorts of officials, including the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, and said nothing about it, said she was on holiday. And who knows what went on, who knows what she knows that nobody else knows, that Johnson daren't sack her, because as a Home Secretary she is an absolute, utter disaster. And there are other things like, you know, the decoration of the apartment in Downing Street, and who paid for it, and how they tried to, well, how Johnson was so evasive, and how he tried to cover it all up, and eventually it turned out that Lord Brownlow had paid for it, and so on. And there are things like when Peter Cruddas, who's a big Tory donor, when Johnson wanted to put him in the House of Lords, the committee which vets these things strongly recommended that Cruddas was not suitable to be made a Lord. But Johnson overruled them, and he was made a Lord. And within weeks, Cruddas gave £500,000 to the Tory party. He wanted to change the rules, didn't he, to protect Owen Paterson, and did his best to do so. I mean, it's outrageous, flagrant breach of his power and authority to try and change the rules to protect one of his MPs. And then on top of everything else, there's these constant breaching of COVID rules. We know that there are more fines coming. And what's he going to say next time? What's his next excuse going to be? I've just already talked about how his pathetic excuse about how he went to this birthday party without realising it was a party. And we've already heard how he went into the garden in Downing Street, didn't he? And he found there a whole load of people at a bring your own bottle party, all drinking, loads of food there. He stayed there with his wife for half an hour before realising that it wasn't, in fact, a government business meeting, and left. What's he going to say when the next fines come up? It'd be interesting to see. But the propaganda department will put out something else, and everybody's going to repeat that and repeat that and repeat that, and people start to believe it. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. So anyway, what with all these fines, he needed a new dead cat, and so they thought, what can we do to get all the right-wing supporters to come with us, all the xenophobes and so on to back us. Now, immigration was the big subject in the referendum. It was what everybody voted for. Stop all these foreigners coming here, stop all these people coming and working in our abattoirs and working in our fields and working in our care homes, stop them all coming. That was what it was. Immigration was the top subject. Immigration and taking back control from civil servants in Belgium who had no control, and leave us with less control than we've ever had before. Those were the subjects, but immigration was then the hot topic. Now, in January, Ipsos Mori did a survey in which they asked people what were the subjects that most concern them at the moment in terms of politics, the most important subjects. And these are them in a list of 10. Number one was the coronavirus. People were still very concerned about the coronavirus. The second, and rather interestingly, most important subject that interested people in terms of politics was lack of faith in politics and politicians. In other words, people are realising now that they're being lied to all the time, that we've got an utterly incompetent government, but there's nothing we can do about it. 3 was the economy. 4 was the NHS, hospitals, healthcare. 5th was the common market, Brexit and the EU. 6th was pollution and environmental damage and so on. 7th was poverty and inequality. 8th was inflation and prices. And number 9, the 9th most important of 10 considerations, was immigration. In other words, people have started to realise that in the first place we can stop people coming, we're stopping anybody coming, and there's a huge shortage of workers in so many different areas of the economy because of taking over control, taking back control of immigration. It is no longer a concern. But Johnson saw this as an opportunity to start digging it all up again, and so they came up with this idea. Him and the Wicked Witch at the Home Office came up with this idea of sending those people who arrived, asylum seekers arriving across the channel in boats, sending them off to Rwanda. Now, 2 things really. One is that nobody can reasonably possibly say, just open the doors, let anybody come. We have to have immigration controls. It's very, very important. But we do have to have channels whereby people can come here. At the moment, it is almost impossible. It's almost impossible to come here unless you're brightest and the best. If you've got a Nobel Prize, you probably get in all right. If you're extremely rich, you probably get in all right. But anybody else, if you're a worker, if you're somebody who wants to come and do all the jobs that we don't want to do, you can't come here. It's too difficult. There are too many obstacles, and we've seen the disgraceful way in which we've dealt with these poor and miserable women and children from Ukraine. How difficult we've made it. I read somewhere the other day that Ireland, with a population of 5 million, have accepted 24,000 Ukrainians, and we, with a population of 67 million, have accepted so far 1,200. I mean, it's really just been disgraceful. But anyway, they've come up with this idea of in order to stop. This is the reason they're giving, to stop the people smugglers from sending people across the channel. To stop them, that they'll all be sent off to Rwanda. Now, the chances of this ever happening, it seems to me, are zero. It's simply not going to happen. But it's a good story. It's all over the papers, and it will be for days to come. And it's an idea which has so many problems to it. So many, it's just so mad. You know, the Israelis tried it and it was a complete failure. We're sending them to an autocratic, very tough country where criticism of the government is not allowed, where our government was criticising them for being responsible for torture and all sorts of other atrocities not long ago. And the idea is that we're going to send tens of thousands of men. Women and children are not going to go, apparently. Tens of thousands of men to Rwanda, where they will be able to apply for right to remain there, or nationality in Rwanda. And so these tens of thousands of men, who might be Afghanis, they might even be people who worked for us during the war, who in fear of their lives now because they were known to have helped the British or the Americans or whatever during the Troubles. So it might be Afghans going there, it might be Iranians who are escaping from Iran, it may be Syrians who are escaping because they're in fear for their lives. All these different people, since they can't come here legally, there's no legal route, if they come across the channel, and they're going to be sent to Rwanda. So what you're going to get is tens of thousands of people sent to Rwanda, men only, different racial groups, different countries, different language. They can be sent to an extremely poor country where the individual GDP is around about $3,500 a year, and they're going to be expected to stay there. Well, what would happen, very obviously, is that as the Israelis found, is that they'll just leave, and they'll just come back, and they'll have another go at coming to this country. I mean, it's just a mad system. And the government, when asked about how much this is all going to cost, they say, well, it'll cost about what it's costing us to keep them in the UK. In other words, we're being told time and time again that it costs $4 million a day to keep these people in so-called hotels. And that's what it's going to cost us. We're going to pay that to the Rwandan government to keep them there instead of them being here. And so these people are all going to go to Rwanda. They're all going to escape. The Rwandans will carry on claiming for them, no doubt. And it will solve absolutely nothing. And the people smugglers will find other ways of getting people into the country. Complete and utter madness. But it's taken the fines off the front page for a few days. And that's no doubt what it was intended to do. And of course, the person spearheading all this is Johnson's Rottweiler, Patel. This really, truly dreadful woman. I mean, I can't say how much I dislike this woman. It's been put about a lot that her parents escaped. They were thrown out of Uganda by Idi Amin, and that's why they came here. They came here escaping, refugees. Her parents came here in the 60s. They were economic migrants who came to the UK in the 60s, and they did very well as a result of coming here. And Idi Amin didn't throw anybody out until 1972, long after her parents had come. So she wasn't a refugee. Suella Braverman, she was on she's the Attorney General. She was on someone you would think would tell the truth. She was on Question Time a few weeks ago, and she was saying that her father was a refugee. He wasn't. He was an economic migrant, came from Kenya. He came back in the 60s. Sajid Javid's parents came from Pakistan. They weren't escaping an oppressive regime, or they weren't in danger. They came here as economic migrants. Alok Sharma, he came when he was 5 years old from India. He wasn't in danger. His family weren't in any danger. Sunak, his parents came from Kenya. They weren't in any danger. Economic migrants. They thought they'd do better in the UK, and they jolly well did. Nadim Zahawi came from Iraq. All these people, there's just 6 people, they're in the cabinet. They've all done pretty well, haven't they? All of them economic migrants. And yet they're absolutely passionate about stopping others coming here. Anyway, as I say, I mean, you can't have people smugglers bringing people to this country and the way they're doing it and risking lives and so on, and everything should be done to stop them. But sending people who do get here successfully, people who might, if they were allowed to remain, end up in the cabinet, incidentally. But anyway, you can't send them off. You can't send them off to a country in the middle of Africa and just dump them there. Anyway, that's what I think about it. I mean, I think this government is just so bad, really, really quite hopeless, and I don't know. We'll see what happens on May the 6th, because I think what is going to happen in the next few weeks, we've got more fines coming, almost certainly. I think 2 or 3 more fines for Johnson's going to make it very, very difficult for him. I mean, I've been saying for a long time that I didn't think he would last, not because of all these things that are happening now, but because I thought he is so reckless and so incompetent that sooner or later he's going to trip up. But somehow or other, he gets away with it every time. And I think the Tory members of Parliament all think somehow he's this great electoral asset that he will always win for them. But I think that's questionable, and I think the election results in 3 weeks' time are going to be very, very interesting, and it'll be an interesting couple of months to come, I think. So that's all I've got to say for now. If you approve of what I say and you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, I'd be very grateful. And if you haven't subscribed already and you wouldn't mind doing so, I'd also be grateful for that. And so until next time, thank you for watching, and bye for now.